The midterm elections are now just 1 week away, and some states have early in-person voting. So yesterday, old Joe brought his granddaughter out to vote in Delaware, where they encountered some white supremacy face-to-face being perpetuated by these two sweet old black ladies who are obviously Kanye West fans who immediately demanded that old Joe and his granddaughter show their IDs before they were allowed to vote. ID, please. Even old Joe.
Her first vote.
He's got to do it. Her first vote, he says. She must have just turned 18, so she's obviously too old for him now. But I thought that was racist. Every election, the Democrats scream and shout about how demanding to see an ID in order to vote is the epitome of white supremacy and black suppression. Here's Kamala Harris on BET, Black Entertainment Television, saying that her and old Joe are never going to compromise and mandate racist voter ID laws, especially for mail-in ballots.
Is agreeing to voter ID one of those compromises that you'd support?
I don't think that we should underestimate what that could mean. Because in some people's mind, that means, well, you're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't, there's no Kinko's, there's no Office Max near them. People have to understand that when we're talking about voter ID laws, be clear about who you have in mind and what would be required of them to prove who they are.
I'm pretty sure that people who live in small little towns in the Midwest or out in the country in the middle of nowhere are smart enough to find a copy machine, whether it is at the nearest FedEx Kinko or the UPS store or the post office or the local pharmacy. Not to mention they could just take a picture of their ID and then print it out at home on their own printer. But it's not just voter ID laws that are racist. It turns out the World Series is racist this year, too.
And for the first time since 1950, there are no American-born black players expected to play this year.
Oh.
This has only happened just once since Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier 75 years ago. What we could be witnessing, though, is the result of a bigger issue. African Americans are just not playing baseball anymore.
Too many white people playing baseball. When ESPN's Stephen A. Smith was complaining about this, he couldn't help but also get off his chest that he doesn't think that black people are getting paid enough, period. Including himself, who's making $12 million a year, $1 million a month to talk about sports.
We are still black in this country. We don't trust this country in terms of meritocracy always. We know the bottom line is that just like women are underpaid compared to male counterparts.
Actually, the wage gap myth has been thoroughly debunked, and the disparity is because women typically choose different kinds of jobs. But you know what? If the women want to start pouring concrete and doing roofing, then good luck.
Blacks are underpaid compared to white counterparts. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and of course, people look at me, I'm not talking about me, even though I got news for you. I am underpaid compared to some people on television and what they get paid, but that's a subject for another day. I ain't apologizing for that to a damn soul. I am underpaid.
Underpaid at $1 million a month. And assuming he works a 5-day work week, that's $50,000 a day. But the white man is keeping him down. Also, the idea, the fact, the obvious reality that there are only two genders is also because of, you guessed it, white supremacy, according to this carbon-based life form that doesn't identify as either a man or a woman.
The gender binary is a direct result of European colonization. And if we look globally and historically throughout the world,
you would find only men and women up until just the last few years. Until the drag queen mafia basically took over America.
And the ways that people have existed and talked about gender, the idea of there only being two genders is a new concept that is directly linked to white supremacy.
Yesterday was Halloween, but I didn't see any talk this year about any cultural appropriating costumes, so all the big corporations must have made sure this year not to put any out on the shelf. The only thing I saw was this Yahoo News article about 10 problematic costumes. And on the top of their list this year was Jeffrey Dahmer's costume, because there was a new Jeffrey Dahmer documentary on Netflix, which upset the drag queen mafia because, well, he was a gay cannibal, and people would rather just sweep that under the rug. Queen Elizabeth also can't dress up as Queen Elizabeth, not because of cultural appropriation, because it's just too soon. Too soon. And I don't know how I missed this, but last year, some worthless reality star on one of the Real Housewives shows dressed up as a Native American, this woman who's black, and got into big trouble, which is quite amazing because I didn't think that black people could commit cultural appropriation. She apologized for her disrespectful Native American themed costume and regrets it. Come on, America, you're disappointing me. I want to see more people wearing costumes like this. This was from a few years ago, of course. This really is one of the greatest costumes I think ever invented. Of course, it's homemade, and it's an illegal alien hopping over the wall. If you missed it, last year I committed cultural appropriation for a man on the street interview to go and talk to people about it, and it just went right over their heads. They were complaining about it, even though I was staring them right in the face. So if you missed that, you can go and check it out. And speaking of Halloween, here's a purple-headed TikToker who's being 100% serious, talking about her, about Ghost's self, Ghost's pronouns.
I'm going to explain this to you very clearly. People who use ghost self pronouns do not actually think that they're a ghost since somebody told you that apparently. They just feel that ghost self is a perfect way to describe how they feel about their gender pronoun-wise. And it literally works the same way as if you would use somebody's name instead of a pronoun. It works the same way as talking about somebody in the third person. Literally, if I were to say Salem's favorite game is a PlayStation 2 game, and it makes Salem very happy that it still works.
I told you that this is not a parody. This person is literally lecturing the world on TikTok about using the pronouns ghost.
But then you replace
They're not really a ghost, but they just feel like one.
it with a
And you're supposed to respect their preferred pronouns.
neo-pronouns. It will be, Ghost's favorite game is a PlayStation 2 game, and it makes Ghost very happy because it's still...
I love how she's literally, how Ghost is literally like giving examples about how to use her pronouns. God. And speaking of pronouns, if Elon Musk wanted to make his job a lot easier, he should just fire every single Twitter employee at the company who includes their preferred pronouns in their Twitter bio. Like this person who is the head of the privacy department who goes by they and them. There's going to be a lot of talk about Twitter over the next week, especially with the midterms just around the corner, for the next several weeks, for the next several months with Elon's takeover, especially since he has apparently just limited the content enforcement tools. And so the media, of course, is freaking out about this. A group of 300 people used to have access to these tools to, restrict people's accounts for posting misinformation about elections. And apparently he's now taken that ability away from everyone except for a group of 15 people. And hopefully those are the people that he brought in from SpaceX or from Tesla. Those familiar with the issue told Bloomberg that some employees working in Twitter's trust and safety organization can no longer alter or penalize accounts that break rules on misleading information, offensive posts, and hate speech. Hate speech being speech that those in positions of power hate, of course. Bloomberg reports that the move to restrict content moderation access is part of a broader plan to freeze Twitter's software code to keep employees from pushing changes to the app during the transition to new ownership. Meanwhile, over at Facebook, or Meta as they've rebranded themselves, which is the dumbest rebrand ever, their stock has fallen 24%, at least the lowest since 2016. So all those booming gains from during the pandemic are gone. All of these FANG stocks, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, were just skyrocketing during the pandemic. And now all of those gains are gone. CBS News reports that Meta's value has plunged by $700 billion. Wall Street calls it a train wreck. I call it fun. And if a company's stock has collapsed, that means only one thing. CNBC's Jim Cramer, their financial guru, must have recommended it to his audience to buy shortly before the collapse. So here he is, almost in tears, apologizing again for making the wrong decision, recommendation, as he always does.
Okay, let me say this about this. I made a mistake here. I was wrong. I trusted this management team. That was ill-advised. Hubris here is extraordinary. And I apologize.
Okay.
You know, Mr. Zuckerberg, maybe your stock wouldn't be collapsing and people wouldn't be fleeing your platform, losing you a net number of users for the first time in 18 years if you hadn't been censoring so many people for the last 7 years and issuing these annoying fake fact checks about things like on memes about the price of gas being high because of Democrats' policies and their war on fossil fuels. I did a whole video on Facebook's fake fact checks. If you missed it, here it is. Just click on the screen and check it out. Or if you're new to my channel, check out some of the classic Man on the Street episodes by clicking right over here.